When I came into your hall tonight, I thought of the last time I was in your city. 21 years ago, I came here with Susan B. Anthony, and our purpose then was exactly the same as it is tonight. Boys have been born since that time and become voters. And women are still trying to persuade American men of the fundamental principles of democracy. The difficulty with discussing this question with those who oppose us is they make any number of arguments, but none of them have anything to do with women's suffrage. They always have something to do with something else, and therefore the arguments we have to make rarely have anything to do with the subject either, because our opponents escape the subject so far as possible in order to have any reason in connection with what they say. If women's suffrage is wrong, it is a great wrong. If it is right, it is a profound and fundamental principle upon which a republic must rise. The difficulty with the men of this country is that they are so consistent in their inconsistency that they are not even aware of having been inconsistent. Now, no one can deny that they are sincere, honest, and earnest men. No one can deny that the Puritans were men of profound conviction. And yet these men, who had given up everything in behalf of an ideal, hardly settled their communities in this new country before they began to practice exactly the same sort of persecutions which had been practiced upon them. They called it religious freedom, yet they were not able to live the ideal of religious liberty. And from that time to this, the men of this government have been following along the same line of inconsistency, while they too have been pursuing a vision of equal grandeur and power. Never in the history of the world did it dawn upon the human mind, as it dawned upon your ancestors, what it would mean for men to be free. They did not equivocate in a single word when they wrote the Declaration of Independence. Yet as soon as the war was over and our government was formed, instead of asking the question, who shall be the governing force in this great new republic, they began to eliminate instead of include. You would have supposed that such men as fought the Revolutionary War would have been able to answer that every man who has fought, every one who has given up all he has, shall be free. It never entered their minds. These excellent ancestors of yours had not been away from the old world long enough to know that a man is of more value than his purse. And so they said that every man who owns an estate worth $250 shall have a voice. And God said in the beginning, it is not good for man to stand alone. That is why we are here tonight, and that is all that women's suffrage means. So the women of this state are asking that the word male shall be struck from the Constitution altogether, that it may stand as it ought to have stood in the beginning. Now, what is a republic? Take your dictionary, and never will you find a definition of a republic in which half of the people elect representatives to govern the whole of the people. That is an aristocracy, and that is exactly what we are. There are two old theories which are dying today. Dying hard, but dying. One of them is dying on the plains of Flanders and the mountains of Galicia and Austria, and that is the theory of the divine right of kings. The other is dying here in the States. The theory of the divine right of sex. Neither of them had a foundation in reason, justice, or common sense. When I was a girl, I lived in the backwoods. There, the election depended entirely upon the size of the ballot box. We had those old tissue boxes, and the man who got the most tissue in was the man elected. Now, the best part of our community was very much disturbed by this method, but they heard that over in Australia, where the women voted, they had a ballot which was both safe and secret. So we went over there and we got the Australian ballot. But when we brought it back, we found it was not suited to this country because in Australia, they have to be able to read their ballot. How could we adapt it to our conditions? If you were to put a symbol at the head of each column, such as a rooster or an eagle, if a man has intelligence to know the difference between a rooster and an eagle, he will know which political party to vote for. Now almost every American could vote that ballot. When we take so much pains to adapt the ballot to the male intelligence of the United States, we should be very humble when we talk of female ignorance. If men had to read their ballot in order to vote it, more women could vote than men. But when our government says that not only must you be 21 years of age and native born or naturalized, those are qualifications. But when it says that an elector must be male, that is not a qualification for citizenship. It is an insurmountable barrier between one half of the people and the other half. That no such nation can call itself a republic. It is only an aristocracy. Where is the difficulty? Just in one thing, and one thing only, and that is that men are so sentimental. A gentleman in California told me that he and his wife had been married for 20 years and never had a difference of opinion, and he was afraid that if women voted, his wife would vote differently from him, and then that beautiful harmony which they had had for 20 years would be broken. I could not help wondering which was the idiot. No intelligent human beings can live together for 20 years and not have a difference of opinion. The couple that is quarreling after the vote is quarreling now. A dear, good friend of mine in Omaha asked me, "Now, Miss Shaw," and she held her baby in her arms, "is this not my job?" I said, "It certainly is." And she said, "How can I go down to the polls and vote and neglect my baby?" I said, "Has your husband a job?" "Why, you know he has." I did know it. He was a banker and a very busy one. "Yet your husband said he was going to leave his job to go down to the polls and vote? What an advantage advantage you have over your husband. He has to leave his job to vote. You can take your job with you. If the women vote, will they go to war? If Germany were to send an army of women over here, then we should go down to meet them and say, come on, let's go up to the opera house and we'll talk the matter over. It might grow wearisome, but it would not be death. Would it not have been better if the heads of the governments in Europe had talked things over? What might have happened to the world if a dozen men had gotten together and settled the awful controversy which is today decimating their nations? It is remarkable that even in this age, men cannot discuss international problems in peace. We women do not want the vote in order that we may fight. We want the vote so that we may help the men to keep from fighting. We are needed everywhere there are human problems to be solved. Just as the home is not without the man, so the state is not without the woman. Men and women must